All right, so we're going to move on today. We're going to be picking up in Matthew chapter 6 once again. I think we're going to be picking up, I believe it's verse 19. Matthew chapter 6, that's 26. And verse 19, that's right. And so, once again, just before we get into this, I want us to remember who he's talking to, because this is important, right? Because if I'm talking to somebody about taxes, the content of what I'm going to talk about is going to be different depending on who you are, right? If you're a private citizen versus owning a small business versus a large corporation, right? It's very different depending on the crowd that you're speaking to. And the reason I want us to understand this is because the crowd that Jesus is speaking to in this time, these are disciples. These are people who self-admittedly love Jesus, love his teaching, and have decided that they're going to devote themselves to his teaching. We're not just talking about the 12 here. We're talking about a larger group of disciples at this point. Right? There's a larger group that is there, and so but whether or not you are one of the 12, right, you are still a disciple of Jesus Christ if you've decided to make him Lord of your life, and you've decided that he is going to be the one that is calling the shots. And so, with that, let us look at Matthew chapter 6, starting at verse 19, where it says this. And sorry, today I forgot to bring my sheets, so I'm just going to read it out of my Bible, so it might be a little bit different than what's up on the screen. Do not accumulate for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and devouring insect destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But accumulate for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and devouring insect do not destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Okay. Real quick pause right here as we stop. This one, okay. As a child, I remember being roughly about Claire's age, sitting in a pew, hearing this particular teaching, and I'm thinking, like, when you hear treasure, right? I'm one of those kids that grew up with the Goonies, and so I'm thinking, like, okay, there's like some sort of pirate treasure with gold coins and rubies and all kinds of gems and wonderful things. And I'm like, how do I take that stuff, Jesus, and store that in heaven? I don't understand. But what I want us to understand when Jesus is talking about, and what, of course, every single one of the people in that crowd would have understood when Jesus is talking about treasure, is he's saying the thing that you value the most. What's interesting about this, right? He's saying don't build up treasures here in heaven, here on earth, because it is fleeting. My page keeps flipping on me. See, treasure is about what you value, and of course we need to store up that treasure in eternity, which means if we're going to store up treasure in eternity, we need to place value in what is coming in the after, not in the now. This is a big thing that I think we've seen a major generational shift since the 20th century. Right, when we start at the beginning of the 20th century, we have what is called the silent generation. The silent generation were essentially the ones that built the West and built everything up to its level and built everything to the point where we were about to enter into the biggest economic boom this world has ever seen. And it was all because of the hard work and sacrifice of people not trying to earn it for themselves, but trying to earn it for their children, their grandchildren, and their great-grandchildren. They were thinking ahead. They wanted to bless those in the future, and they realized, I'm not working for the now that I would have power and authority here, but I want to work for the future, for those that come after me. Then, of course, you have the greatest generation that came after that. That's literally their title, the greatest generation. It's not a subjective claim by me. They, of course, we reward them for a lot of their sacrifice and what happened there, because they fought in the great wars. And they gave up a lot, and they sacrificed a lot. Now, many of them died as a result of what happened there. And so that's why they refer to. And then, of course, right after them came the boom, the baby boom. And of course, that's exactly, that's the generation that we still have with us today. And because of all of the work that was done by the preceding generations. Not only did we have a baby boom, we had an economic boom unlike this world has ever seen. And it was all preceded by what happened before. However, what also started to happen when we and this is one of those things, right? And I've talked about the population crisis before, where I've mentioned how we're actually starting to enter into a decline. And although there's a lot of people that are like, oh, the planet's population is unsustainable, it's actually becoming unsustainable in the other direction, in that we don't have enough children to replace the elderly. And I don't know if you know anything about upside-down pyramids, but they don't stand very well. And that's essentially what we're creating when we have this today. And it's because we have this whole new mentality that has since popped up. It started in the late 50s. We started seeing it really gain steam in the 60s and 70s. This idea that we only got one life to live. Let's live for the now. Let's do it now. And it just kept gaining steam and more momentum, or more popularity, to the point where we get it today, where you hear the young ones say YOLO. And yes, I said it again, Brittany. You only live once. And of course, this is just a pathway to narcissism, because it essentially gives us license to do what we want to do, say what we want to say, because I'm only going to live once. And then we forget that the things that we have not only have an impact on the future for those that live here, but have an impact on eternity. It says a lot about what we value. We've seen that in previous generations, where they valued hard work, devotion to God, and a pursuit to make sure that their families were well taken care of. Versus today, where we see not only in our culture, but even in our churches, this has crept in, this idea that I'm only going to be here for a short amount of time, so I'm going to indulge in whatever I can. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying all things are bad. In fact, I don't even think wealth is bad. But I think we need to recognize and see the warning signs for what they are. And what are they? Verse 22. The eye is the lamp of the body. If then your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is diseased, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? This was ever so confusing to me as a young person. Seth, what does that mean? If that the eyes of the lamp of the world, the eyes of the lamp of your inside, and if you have darkness, it's just shining darkness. What does that mean? That's right. It's confusing, right? That's what I'm getting at. Let me tell you what it means. And this has to do with what Jesus just said in the first little passage. It means that whatever we set our heart on, whatever we set our eyes to, whatever we perceive to be valuable, and that becomes our objective, that becomes our goal, then that is what determines the condition of our heart. If you set your heart on evil things, on bad things, on corruption, on carnality, on greed, then you're going to have darkness in your heart. But if you set your heart on the things of God, if you set your eyes onto the things of God and allow your eyes to be filled with the light of God, because guess what? That's where we're going to find the light. Not from anything else in this world, not from any other objective, not from any other source. We're only going to find that light from God. When we set our eyes on God and allow God to fill us with that light, and therefore we shine forth the light of benevolence, forgiveness, compassion, mercy. These things only happen when we recognize and see them as the virtues and the values that they are, and treasure them for what they are. Let's just read the last part real quick. No one, verse 24, no one can serve two masters. For either he will hate one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Now, I've said this before, but I'll say it again because it is worth repeating here. Hate in the Bible, when they're talking about hate, when Jesus mentions hate, he's not talking about hate much how we'd say in the 21st century, okay? Hate in the 21st century, we are talking about an utter lack of love. We completely despise. But when the Jews were talking about hate, they were literally talking about taking one over the other. When he says you're going to hate one, that doesn't mean you must despise the world, that you must hate the world as we use it. But instead, what he's saying is, no, you're choosing God over the world. The reason I think that this is important is because, as he said, you cannot serve two masters. You cannot serve God or money, or God and money. And unfortunately, I think this has been taken and people have run with it in the past, and they have said, therefore, if you are wealthy, you must be evil. Because you must have served money in order to gain all of that wealth, and you, therefore, must be evil. And I would say absolutely not. Because we also read about money in the parable of the talents. It has to do with the intent of your heart. See, those that were wanting to serve their master and serve their master well, invested it, they did well with the money, and they earned double back. And the Lord just kept entrusting them with more and more and more because their good intention, their good heart allowed them to earn wealth. But it wasn't seeking wealth for wealth's sake. It wasn't seeking power for power's sake. We see that in our world today. A great example of this, and I'm going to use this individual for an example, whether or not, again, love him or hate him, it doesn't matter. I think my point stands. If you look at the path that Elon Musk took, he saw a problem in the world. He said, I think climate change is a really, really, really big issue, and I think we need to get people to stop driving combustion engines. But I don't think that we should legislate it away. I think we need to make a better alternative for people. And so what did he do? He started an electric car company, not because he wanted to become wealthy, but because he saw a problem and he wanted to fix it. Now, and the reason I want to bring, I put a spotlight on him specifically is because this is kind of unique, right? A lot of people don't do this. A lot of people go, here's an opportunity to make money, I'm going to exploit it. But just to be clear, he's not the only one. We see this with Albert Einstein as well. I was talking to Rebecca about this story just the other day. Albert Einstein, famously or not so famously, wrote or created a pumping system that does not require any level of vibration or interaction with the fluid. It all operates through electromagnetism. And you might be like, hey, I haven't heard of that. What good is that? He literally created it because before we used Freon in fridges, the gas that was used inside was like incredibly toxic, and the vibration would lead to leaks, which would lead to people dying. And so he literally came up with this whole new invention, which actually has major applications in industrial settings and actually makes things incredibly safe. But he did it literally because I want to make sure that people are going to be okay. Now, he did become wealthy as a result of this. But again, it's the intention of your heart. Why did you do it? Why did you do what you do? There's nothing wrong with wealth. There is a problem with greed, right? Do you see the difference? See, Jesus is largely attacking, as I said, greed in this passage. And although greedy people tend to become wealthy, not all wealthy people are guaranteed to be greedy. And I think this is an important thing for us to recognize. Because otherwise we end up, some of those people that end up like just absolutely railing against the wealth of the world and wealth of people and wealth of churches. And guess what? We don't know why God has given out what he has given. But at the end of the day, I do trust and I do believe that it is God who is in control. And if he has handed out that wealth, if he has handed out those provisions, then he knows why those people have what they have. But once again, what Jesus is really trying to draw our attention to, what Jesus has been constantly drawing our attention to, back again and again and again, is the condition of our heart. What is your heart after? What do you have your eyes set upon? Is it carnality? Is that the thing that you're seeking after? Is it greed, wealth, power? Are these the things that you're after? Or are you after love and benevolence and forgiveness and grace, mercy? What are the things that you set up in your heart? Do you fill it with fruits of the Spirit? Or do you fill it full of fruits of this world? He's trying to help us to see the warning signs ahead of time. To see that, guess what? Not one of us, no, not even one, is invulnerable to the temptations of these things. I mean, if we're going to be honest, right? Who here has been tempted by greed? Who's even given in to greed a little bit? Absolutely. One honest soul in this whole room. Because it's so alluring. We can see an opportunity for gain and for advancement, and we can see the ability to grow, and we're like, yes, I want that. The trouble is sometimes even after we've done it, we can see it for the flaw that it was. Because in the end, if we would have just stuck to our guns, stuck to our principles, stuck to our virtue, it's amazing. And Rebecca and I can tell you all kinds of stories of the way that God's provided us through the years, is that when we just trust in God, when we just keep taking what God has given us and using it to the max and using it for what he would have for us, we've never been without. God has always taken care of us, and He has always provided for us, and He's always been there for us. See, don't fall for the narrative that tells us that you are what you are, so just embrace who you are. Who here remembers that song by Lady Gaga, Born This Way? Man, did I hate that. I think I was in Bible college, maybe when that song came out. And I hated that song because it reinforced an idea that I thought was incredibly dangerous. That we're just born that way, so just embrace who you are. It told people that you don't need to change. You're perfect just the way you are, kitten. Here's the fact. No one actually believes that. People will say they believe it. People will act as if they believe it. But I have a question for you. Have you ever met someone who, when they saw someone murder someone, said that person shouldn't go to jail? They should be free. Because they couldn't help it, they were just born that way. Has anyone ever met that person? No, they don't exist. Because at the end of the day, down at our very core, we all know and believe that we are the only ones that are responsible for our actions. In fact, let's face it, if you believed and you truly held to this determinist idea that we are just a product of chemistry and biology, that we have no ability to change who we are, that all we can do is embrace it, what is the point of prison? Because criminals will always be criminals because they can't help it. That's who they are. Why even bother? What is the point? It doesn't make any sense, because at the end of the day, each and every one of us knows this. Change may be difficult. Change is unpleasant. Change is really challenging. But change is possible if we embrace the change maker in our lives. If we embrace God, allow the Holy Spirit to move in, allow God to take hold of our lives, then yes, we can change. We can embrace that virtue, embrace the things of God, embrace the ways of God. But we can only do that if we allow ourselves first to acknowledge the issue. Right? You can't fix what you don't admit is a problem. And if you're constantly saying, no, this is just who I am, and instead of saying, no, this is a bit of a problem, then you're never going to be able to change. You're never going to be able to become what you would desire instead of what you are. See, God can change you. God can help you. God can transform you. But it all starts with, what do you value? What do you set your eyes upon? What is most important? Is that, is that new toy the most important thing? Is it that new experience, that new job, that new whatever. Are these the things that we're seeking after, the things of this world, the experiences of this world? Or are we looking at God and saying, God, I want to do whatever I can to honor you, to please you, to worship you? And let me tell you, as a young Christian, I remember hearing these things, and I used to think, wait a minute, does this mean like the only thing I can do is like I go to church and then I go home and I read my Bible and I praise God, and then I go to work and I come home and I read my Bible and pray? Does this mean this is the only thing I can do? I said, no. But it means it's the most important thing to you. And I can tell what's important to each and every one of you based on the conversations and the relationships that I have with each and every one of you. And I can see what you value over other things. I can see the pyramid of values for each and every one of you and what each and every one of you holds above all else. And Rebecca could say the same about me. She knows me very well, knows what I value, knows what I value above all else. And so I would ask you, if you're honest with yourself, what is at the very tip top of that pyramid for yourself? Because if it's not God, that's where the trouble begins. You can have all kinds of other interests and hobbies and fun and all kinds of other things, as long as the very tip top, the very master that you serve, the very voice of authority in your life is that of God. That you're not serving after pleasure, you're not serving after material, you're not serving after the things of this world, but you're going after the Lord.